Okay.
Is it on?
Yeah.
What do I do?
Start talking. Oh.
Oh, okay. How do I know it's working?
It's working.
How do I know?
I mean, if you press, don't press this, press this. No, this one. This one. This one.
Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you? Hold on one second. No. Joe, can you get the baby? I have a very loving little 18, actually it's not even 18 months, 16-month-old daughter here who just wants to be on mommy's lap all the time. So everyone, welcome to my class on the kosher dietary laws. It is the new year and everybody's excited about going on a new diet. I know I definitely need to be on one, but I think I need to focus more on exercise. But anyway, this is a great time to get started with your kosher diet. And I'm going to be covering the book Kosher for the Clueless but Curious by Shimon Apisdorf. It looks like this. And it's a really great book. It's a fun read, and it's a fast read, and it will answer many, many of your questions. I do recommend getting the book because I don't usually read from the books during my classes. I feel like you could read on your own. I just usually give anecdotes or highlight the chapter and, and give my little blurbs. So I highly recommend getting the book, not only so that you can, read ahead and be prepared for anything that comes up, but it's a great reference tool in the future when you get started on a kosher diet. Towards the end of the session, I will review products, I'll review cookbooks, and I'll answer any questions. So hold your questions, and I'll be happy to answer them towards the end. Okay, so for this first class, I'm definitely going to read from the book because I don't imagine that any of you probably have had a chance to get it yet. So I'm just going to read, and I'll anecdote along the way. And we are going to start with, at the very beginning, it's a very good place to start, as Julie Andrews would say. We're going to start with the introduction. This introduction is called Green Eggs and Clam. So I'll just read. A number of years ago, I was working with Tracy Hayes, the convention manager at a Hyatt Hotel in Columbus, Ohio. We were planning a breakfast reception for a group of 50 people. But this wasn't just any old breakfast reception. This was a kosher breakfast reception. What's more, this was the very first time Tracy had ever organized a kosher event. She was very accommodating, and after about an hour, all the pieces were in place. As our meeting was about to end, a serious look came over Tracy's face, and her voice dipped to a reverent whisper. "Do you mind if I ask you something?" she said. I assured her she could feel at ease asking whatever she wanted to. To make sure that I understood the seriousness of her question and to highlight just how sensitive she wanted to be to my feelings, Tracy came out from behind her desk, sat down in the chair next to mine, and struggled to get the words out. "Please don't be offended, but could you explain what kosher is all about? I've never done a kosher event before, and I'm really curious." This book is an answer to that question. Kosher just might be the most well-known facet of Judaism. Jews and non-Jews alike, even if they know nothing about Judaism, in all likelihood, have heard about kosher. After all, kosher-style hot dogs are sold in delicatessens and restaurants everywhere. Many grocery stores have kosher aisles. Kosher is one of the special meal options on an airline travel. A number of Major League Baseball stadiums now have kosher stands, and I recently heard a popular radio talk show host respond to a caller's suggestion regarding a government policy by saying, "I'm not sure that would be kosher." And he clearly assumed that everyone in Radioland would know what he had meant by that. At the same time, though, the word kosher has become so well known that it's now a part of the vernacular. Its true meaning remains highly misunderstood. If you ask the average person what kosher means, the answers you will most likely hear are, "Kosher means a rabbi blessed the food," or "Kosher means the food is very clean and sanitary," or "Kosher means no pork," and "Kosher is a part of the ancient Jewish health code." In fact, kosher is none of these. If I were to sum up kosher in one sentence, I would say the following. Kosher is a comprehensive dietary discipline designed to promote Jewish spirituality. So there you have it. While almost everyone thinks that kosher has everything to do with the body, hot dogs, pickles, cleanliness, and health codes, in fact, what it's actually all about is the soul. And this brings us to a fundamental concept that is essential to understanding not only kosher, but almost everything else about Judaism. So basically, in this first little section, Rabbi Apisdorf is just telling us that kosher has come to be a buzzword sort of in our society that doesn't really mean what the actual meaning is. Kosher diet is designed to make a Jew more spiritually sensitive. It's about promoting their spirituality, and it has little to nothing to do with their health. That may be a fringe benefit, having clean food, having free-range chickens, no hormones in the beef, whatever. All that stuff we know now is really healthy, but it's always been part of the Jewish code of law and part of the health and a vivacity of the Jewish soul, not necessarily the body, even though people say you are what you eat. But here we're hoping that the Jewish soul is connected to what they eat. Okay, so I'm going on to the next part. Have you ever sat on a deserted beach when the sun was setting over the horizon, when a breeze was blowing and gentle waves were rolling ashore, when evening was beginning to wrest control of the sky, and asked yourself, what's it all about? Deep within each and every one of us is a longing, a restless yearning to feel connected to something infinitely deeper, infinitely more profound than the familiar cadence of daily grind that we call life. It's not that there's anything wrong with life, it's just that we feel there has to be something more, something that transcends everything else. This longing, this tug that seems to emanate from the deepest part of our being is the rumblings of our soul. The Jewish understanding of human beings is that we are at once fundamentally earthly as well as intrinsically spiritual beings. We are creatures of flesh, with urges and appetites and desires. At the very same instance, we are creatures of the spirit with urges to soar and appetites for meaning and desires for encounters with spirituality. To the Jewish mind, the difference between people and angels lies in one basic fact. People have bodies and angels don't. The difference between people and animals goes beyond the fact that we are clever enough to put animals in zoos as opposed to being turned into tourist attractions ourselves. The seminal distinction is that people have souls and therefore spiritual lives and animals don't. So here he quotes Genesis 1 verse 27 and chapter 2 verse 7. It says, "And God created the human in his image. And God formed the human from the dust of the earth, and he breathed into its nostrils the soul of life." One of the funny things he mentions here that the difference between people and angels lies in that we have bodies, and the difference between people and animals is that we have souls. So I once heard a tape of Gila Mandelson. If any of you have ever heard of her tape, she's really amazing. She also writes books, and she does a lot of lectures on the laws of modesty, or tznius, and also negia, or touching. So she's mentioned that the reason that human beings feel ashamed when they're naked is that they realize that they are this beautiful soul in this animal body. And seeing the animal body makes us realize that. So just to tie this into kosher, even though we have these animal bodies and we have to nourish them and we have to sustain them basically, we also are spiritual beings. So the kosher diet is really what feeds that soul. Non-kosher food is not good for that soul, and kosher food is good. I think I heard that Angelina Jolie has a tattoo on her body that says, "What doesn't nourish me destroys me." So this is it. Non-kosher food is destructive, and kosher food is productive for the Jewish spirit. Okay, continuing on in our book. The Hebrew word for soul, or neshama, also means breath. When God formed the human from the dust of the earth, this was the body. When God breathed into the nostrils of man, he joined a soul to the body he had already formed. It was the fusion of these disparate elements, body and soul, that formed the complete human being. Further, it is this unique fusion of body and soul into one holistic being that is the basis for all of Jewish life, from beautiful Shabbat prayers right down to the sandwiches we eat and the cappuccinos we drink. The Babylonian Talmud states, it is inherent in non-kosher food that its consumption closes one's heart to spirituality. Junk food is dissonant with the body, while whole foods nourish the body. Non-kosher food is dissonant with the soul, while kosher food facilitates the soul's ability to express itself through the life of the body. When it comes to living a full, deep, and inspired spiritual life, a spiritually Jewish life, kosher is a necessary ingredient. In and of itself, kosher food is not sufficient to create a spiritual life, but without it, a Jew is simply incapable of accessing his or her fullest spiritual potential. So again, it's that Angelina Jolie tattoo adage of, what doesn't nourish me destroys me. So if the soul is not being nourished by kosher food, if you're eating non-kosher food, it's actually destructive to the Jewish soul. So this is one of the reasons that we really need to learn about kosher laws, because we only want to augment that soul. We only want to nourish it. We don't want it to be destroyed. So that's why we're here. All right, on to the next little bit of the book. And I just have a little bit more to read, and then I'll get down to the rest of the nitty-gritty. It's possible that at one time kosher foods may have had health benefits, or kosher kitchens may have rated higher on a sanitary scale, but today that is no longer the case. If there is a health dividend to kosher, that is merely a fringe benefit. The essence of kosher today is what it always was, the spiritual diet of the Jew. If, however, one is looking for other tangible fringe benefits, the one timeless benefit is the role that kosher plays in the cultural, social cohesiveness of the Jewish people. A common Jewish diet makes for a common Jewish bond, and that is a benefit that will always tie Jews together. When all is said and done, this is a book about food, kosher food. And just as cuisine is a window into the spirit of any culture, the same is true for the Jewish people. Judaism is an all-encompassing way of life, a grand holistic system of spirituality. In some ways, kosher is a world unto itself, a huge chunk of a classical religious Jewish life, but it's also more. Just as a tree can't fully be understood independent of the ecosystem of which it is a part, the same is true for kosher. It just can't fully be appreciated independent of the life system known as Judaism. For this reason, in this book, you'll find just about everything you ever wanted to know about kosher, and lots about Judaism as well. So while you may have thought that you purchased a book about kosher, you also got a book about Judaism, spirituality, and life. For Jews, after all, what is life, spirituality, and religion without a good kosher meal? So that's just the closing to the introduction, and I think he does a really good job of laying out what the goal is for this book. Basically, the goal is to teach you the kosher law so that you can keep kosher on your own and, enjoy that spiritual nourishment that keeping a kosher diet can bring. So I always make fun and say that a Jewish person who just is connected to the culture, I make fun of them and I call them matzo ball Jews. And that's not really nice of me, but it is true in a sense that Jewish people are, I guess it's true for any culture really, that they're defined by their food. Italy, how can you think of Italy without thinking of all the amazing pastas and wines and all of that really yummy stuff? In Greece, spinacca pita, and it's just that the food is inherently connected to the culture. So matzo ball Jews, please, are some of the most elevated Jews that we have, because they've already connected to the food aspect of it. Now, if you're asking yourself, am I a matzo ball Jew? I hope you are, and I hope that through this series of lectures and through reading this delicious, amazing book, you will be able to connect to the spiritual side of the Jewish cultural food. I am a convert. I don't know if a lot of you guys know that, but my number one struggle was with kosher laws. And it's because, I was a foodie and I had all this amazing kosher food in front of me. all the time, that I could just eat wherever I wanted. And so when I became Jewish and I started to keep kosher, it was very difficult for me. So that was the hardest thing for me, actually, I should say. It's no longer difficult, and that's because I've learned what is acceptable, what is absolutely not acceptable, and different substitutes for things that I absolutely love that will work out in the framework of a kosher diet. So I'll be covering some of that as well. And I just wanted to tell you guys about, while you're buying your kosher for the clueless yet curious, it would be a good idea to get the Lubavitch Women's Cookbook. It's called Spice and Spirit, and a lot of religious Jewish women know it as the Purple Cookbook. Now, it has pretty much every Jewish recipe you could want, and then some in there. It's got challah for Shabbos, it's got matzo ball soup, it's got kugels, kishka, everything in it. And it also has sections that detail halacha and break it down in a really understandable, normal way. There's also a great section on the holidays and traditional foods that are eaten for the holidays. So that's another, while you're kosher book shopping, that's another book that I highly recommend. It's Spice and Spirit, the Lubavitch Women's Cookbook. And it's great. There aren't any pictures, which is my number one beef with it, because I like a cookbook with pictures. But you will not find a better cookbook that will explain halacha to you right alongside laying down the recipes that you will need to make any simcha, any dinner, any Shabbat, anything so much more fulfilling and spiritually as well as physically nourishing. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty short class because I want all of you guys to get this book. But I wanted to just open up for questions because I'm sure that you guys have a lot of questions. So go ahead and type, and I'll try to address each one. And while you guys are thinking of your questions, I wanted to mention that if you ever want to sponsor a class, we definitely welcome that. It helps us to keep the classes going online and on the air, and helps us to just, be able to have a financial format for providing these classes to you. I want to just give a big thank you to our friend Jason Hurd from Texas. He sponsored some of our classes, and we love you, Jason. Thanks so much. So, okay, now I have a question. It says, I noticed that the labels only say kosher and don't specify about no hormones, antibiotics, free range, etc. Is that automatically included in the kosher label? It is not. Certain brands do only have free range and hormones and so on and so forth. We eat Vineland chicken, and I know that those chickens are raised by Amish people, and then they're brought to the actual kosher processing plant. So they have been raised without hormones, without antibiotics. They are free range, and so when you get the hechsher, like if you have an OU or whatever, that doesn't mean that there's no hormones or any of that. You have to do actually a little bit of research on your own. But I will say that I know Vineland chicken does not use hormones and free range, and they have free range chicken. So you have to be very careful if you're interested in the organic side of food. There are a few kosher brands that do. Again, Vineland is one that I know about. But just, I would say, like any food, do your research. But a hechsher doesn't automatically guarantee. What a hechsher, or the little kosher symbol on the food, does guarantee is that your food has been slaughtered, and if it's meat, or observed if it's dairy, by a special rabbi who knows all about kosher rules. just to make sure that there's no non-kosher elements and everything was done to the standards of the Torah. Okay, and that's what the kosher symbol does represent. It does not mean no antibiotics. It does not mean free range. That is an aside thing that some kosher companies do specialize in, and I would just say do your research. Okay, anybody else have a question? Yeah, no problem. I hope that you you have good luck finding this. It's tough market out there for antibiotic and hormone-free chickens and meat for that matter. But Vineland chicken, way to go. The next question says, what about when we are not yet converted? Can we keep kosher then? Certainly. And in fact, I really encourage anyone who's learning for conversion to start practicing keeping kosher, because then it becomes a habit. I think it says somewhere in the Talmud, and actually I heard this from my personal trainer, that it takes 40 days to make a habit stick. So if you're practicing kosher, when you convert, it's just going to be natural and normal. It's just going to be like a normal segue. I actually broke my conversion to kosher down in 3 steps. The first step I did was that I didn't eat any meat or milk together. I didn't eat any pork, and I didn't eat any shellfish. That meant that I would go to McDonald's still, which is not kosher, and I would eat a hamburger, but I wouldn't get a cheeseburger, and so on and so forth. And I kept that for a little while, and then I felt ready to go until I felt ready to go on to the second stage, which was that I would only eat food that had a hechsher, that had a kosher symbol on it. I would only eat in kosher restaurants, and I would continue to separate, meat, milk, pork, shellfish, all that stuff. I did that for a very long time, and then finally felt ready to go on to the third stage, which was changing over all my dishes, keeping really strict kosher at home, not eating in any non-kosher restaurants, like I said before, and basically the stage that I had before, but just extending it into getting new dishes and so on and so forth. Now, you may not be ready to do that until after your conversion, but you certainly can try. You can definitely try to only eat kosher food before then. And get paper goods. Sometimes that's just the easiest thing to do. Or go to the dollar store and get really inexpensive stuff that you don't mind. Just a minute. You don't mind getting rid of when you do convert. Because when you do convert, everything's got to be either put in the mikvah, or if it can't be kosher, you have to get new. Hold on just a minute. Joe, can you get the baby? She's yelling and I'm trying to give this class. So I highly recommend that you try to keep kosher before your conversion, because it will make your transition into Jewish life just so much easier. And if you ever have any questions, you can find me on Facebook, or you can email me. I'll write my email address up here. You can always email me and ask me questions, get advice, and of course ask your local Orthodox Rav. He is more than happy to help, okay? So any other questions?
Just hold her, that she's usually quiet.
No problem. My pleasure. Yeah, you can email me anytime about conversion. You can email me about kosher, what it's like to be a Jewish mama. Any of those things, you can definitely email me anytime, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Just feel free. Gosh, what else can I tell you? The name of the book that we're going to be learning from, is called Kosher for the Clueless but Curious, from Shimon Apisdorf, and I'll actually type that in. I'll show you the kit cover. just like this. And now I'll type in the name. Joe? Okay, and I'll also type in the name of the cookbook that I recommended, because that, again, it has a lot of good kosher laws in it, as well as recipes. So I'll type that for you. Okay, so I hope that that really helps you guys find peace and happiness and in your beginning of your journey to kosher. Another thing I'd like to propose is that I know that we're all probably really spread out, but one of the things that I like to do with someone who's learning about kosher laws for the first time is to give them a kosher shower when they're ready to finally commit to that third stage of keeping kosher of, I'm really going to do it, I'm going to keep it in my house too. So that would just involve everyone bringing, necessities for the kosher home, pots, pans, utensils, and so on and so forth, and you would make a register list. So if you guys are interested in that, I'm totally down, and I think it would be fun. We could even do it across the country if you wanted, and you just email me about that. Again, I'll write my email address up again. Email me if you're interested in a kosher shower when this whole class is done with, okay? And I will take a few more questions, and then I'll bid you adieu. So if you have any more questions, feel free to type them. And if you think of a question now that I didn't answer, or wasn't, you didn't get to ask me during the class, please email it to me, and I will get to it during the next class. I'm trying to plan on classes being an hour long. Again, I wanted to make sure everyone got the book before I continued on into the more lengthy classes. So, awesome. I hope that's about the kosher shower, because I'm excited about that. Any reason to have a party, right? So, yeah. I hope you guys are able to get the book. I found it actually used. Yeah, I'm planning on this to be a continuing class because I can't cover all of the laws in one tiny little time frame period. But, I want to cover probably about a chapter a week of the Shimon Apisdorf book. Again, I'll let you read it at home, and then I will come into class with anecdotes and so on and so forth. But it's very hard for me to cover kosher laws in half an hour, an hour's length of time. If you want to get started, again, we don't mix meat or milk ever. We have totally separate pots and pans, dishes, and everything for meat and for dairy. We don't eat pork. We don't eat shellfish. We only eat certain kinds of poultry, like turkey and chicken, and duck is also okay. And also their eggs. Now, eggs are interesting. They're a third category, which is called parve, P-A-R-E-V-E. I'll type that in. The third, it's like not meat and it's not dairy. So eggs are considered to be parve. Some people say, oh, eggs are dairy because they're in them with the milk. But in Jewish law, they're considered to not be meat or dairy. So you could eat them. Joe, can you help me? You could eat them with meat or you could eat them with milk. Either one. And fish is also considered to be parve, although if you guys are taking the class on the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, you'll know that it's not safe to eat fish and meat at the same time, but you can eat them in the same meal, whereas milk and meat we don't even eat in the same meal. We separate, after you eat meat, you have to wait 6 hours before eating dairy products, and after eating dairy products, you have to wait half an hour before eating meat products. So those are the basic nutshell laws. Again, they're very detailed, far more detailed than I can cover here, Joe, in the book. So hopefully we'll get into those in the next few classes. But if you wanted to start keeping kosher, this is the way to do it. Start small. Start with those few things. And I called that stage 1 when I was sort of like doing my kosher thing. Is I didn't eat meat and milk together, and I didn't eat pork, and I didn't eat shellfish. And that was my first stage. Okay, so I have a couple of classes. Says, are you planning on holding any other classes like for Jewish women type of classes? Yeah, I mean, as time goes on, I don't have a ton of time because I have 2 little kids and I work, but I would love to host some more classes like classes on Tznius or classes on Taharas HaMishpacha, the laws of family purity. That is going to be an up-and-coming future thing, but I wanted to lay down the cautious thing right now. I think it's really important. It's the beginning of the new calendar year, and everyone's making resolutions. This is something we can all do together. Someone asked how much it takes to sponsor a class. You can sponsor a class for $1 or 25 cents. It's whatever you want to contribute, and then we'll give you a little shout-out on the class, and you'll definitely be helping us to fund future classes. We are able to get more books that way. We're able to pay for our internet and so on and so forth. So it would be really helpful. Anything you can give is awesome, and we have PayPal. So any other questions before I turn you guys loose? Just going to wait a few more minutes for a couple, if anybody's thinking of classes. Okay, if you wanted to donate, Joe, is there PayPal on the Anachle Amuna website? Email me if you want to donate. I'm not sure that my husband has PayPal on his website, but we do have PayPal. Do you have PayPal on the Anachle Amuna website? No. Email me if you would like to donate to sponsor a class. Just email me at themillie.hayes@gmail.com, and I will get you connected through PayPal. Okay? So thank you so much. I'm so glad that you guys let me do this class. Next week will be a little bit longer. It'll be an hour long, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to get the book and be thinking of those questions for next time, okay? So everybody, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And I hope that you guys have luck this week in thinking about kosher and how it can spiritually nourish you. And everyone have a great week, and I'll see you next week right here on the Virtual Yeshiva button on radiotorah.com, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks. Bye.